These Ipswich Town players are defying the odds.
Hello and welcome back to TWTV, where you join me, Jim Cooper, in a very rainy and cold Zagreb, dialing into the AMEX Brighton press box, where I'm joined by Phil Ham and Callum from TWTV. Hey guys, how you doing? It looks a lot sunnier and warmer there.
It's actually getting a bit chilly now because the evening's in, but yes, it's been quite a bright and sunny day overall. Brighton sunny day overall. Yep.
Good. Well, I was very fortunate that the Oliver Twist pub in the middle of Zagreb was actually showing multiple Premier League games today, including the Ipswich game, which I was able to watch, which was quite something. There was a huge game in Zagreb last night where Dynamo Zagreb and Hajduk Split really battled it out. In the end, Split were the winners, but it was like a war. Today was a real battle, quite a game against a very good Brighton side. There was a lot of narratives before the game. Youngest managers, around two of the hottest youngest managers. I can't believe he's 31. And also the two biggest net spenders as well, which is remarkable for Brighton and Ipswich. Phil, take us through, you've obviously written up your match report. Take us through your view and summary of the game, please. How did you take it?
Well, it's funny. Someone on the message board, I think, referred to Kieran as Kieran McCarthy. It was almost a Mick McCarthy-esque performance in some ways, wasn't it? That kind of coming away and sort of, I was going to say stealing a point. That's the wrong way to term it, but kind of, battling for a point, which they very much did throughout the whole 90 minutes. I thought stages of the first half were like a kind of attack versus defence training game. And we repelled them for long periods, but obviously they got through on more than a couple of occasions. Arrow Muric, you could see exactly, Kieran said in his post-match press conference, you could see today why we were so keen to bring Arrow to Portman Road. And yeah, I mean, the save, the double save, I think was the thing that kind of most people went away from the game talking about. But other than that, his just general handling, the way he dealt with crosses, catching most of them, punching when he in other situations, and really, yeah, and just superb goalkeeping display. As we were sort of saying earlier, can we remember a better Town goalkeeping display? Well, probably not for a few seasons because we've generally been on the front foot in most matches over the last few years. But yes, fantastic from him. The back line, I think they showed that kind of stoic resolution that we've seen from, as we say, from Mick McCarthy's defences over the years when coming away to clubs where we weren't expected to get anything. And overall, a point, we were talking beforehand, a point away at Brighton is a very, very good point in this division because I think they'll be well up the table come the end of the season. So I think back-to-back draws. We've not won a game yet, but back-to-back draws is as good a way to kind of progress from the first two games against the two very tough opposition.
And I think, we spoke in the week, didn't we, Phil, about welcome to the Premier League. And again, it's the fullbacks. They're really coming against some strong opposition. I thought Matoma he's a great player, but I think again, like you mentioned of the defence, Axel was his match today, and I thought Davis grew into the game as well and was the match of Minter. It was probably Davis's easiest test today in some ways, but I think they really stood the test, didn't they? I thought. For me, Brighton you could see that their project is a lot more advanced than us. Their style of play, the quality of players across the pitch. Who was their central midfielder, Callum? He was another beast who we were dealing with.
I think Baleba is probably the one you're thinking of. He was a bit of a beast, wasn't he? He seemed to be involved in everything that Brighton were doing, particularly in the first half, whether it be bits of defending which they didn't have to do a lot of, or I think he forced Muric into one of his many good saves quite early on into the bottom corner. He got himself booked as well, I think. But yeah, he was involved in everything. But
I think a shot in there as well, Callum. I think that was the mid, Morsey and Phillips. I think tough game for them. I think they were important to us, but they were a bit bypassed at times today, I thought. Callum, let's look at the Ipswich team. We'll bring up the lineup. Talk us through the starting lineup today. There's a lot of talk on the message board this week about what that lineup would look like. Talk us through the starting 11 for Ipswich, and then move on to your sort of high performers, please.
Well, there were two changes from the game. So obviously, Aro Muric was in goal, and I'll cut to the chase and say that he was certainly my man of the match. I'm not sure I can remember a goalkeeping display like that for quite a long time, but that's already been spoken about previously. The back line, I thought it was interesting to see Dara O'Shea come into the back line for Wolfenden, who we thought was going to make his 200th town appearance today. That will have to be on hold. But I thought O'Shea, along with the rest of the back four, or five, if you want to see it as that, I probably saw it more as a four today. Were outstanding alongside Jacob Greaves, who was, of course, last month's Player of the Month. Leif Davis, you touched on there, was dealt with Minter pretty well. And on the right-hand side, Axel Tuanzebe, I thought was outstanding. Karu Matoma is one of the most, sort of exciting players in the league on that side. And he was hardly given a sniff because of how well Axel played. The midfield too, I think, probably picks itself at the moment, Morsey and Phillips. I do want to point out, stand out Calvin Phillips, because I did think he was excellent, particularly once he got booked as well. I thought he managed to sort of discipline himself well.
It was funny, wasn't it? Yes. He did almost improve after the booking. Although talking about bookings for central midfielders, I think Morsey was very lucky. The second what looked like a yellow edge of the box, I think he got away with that one, and hence I think why he was substituted for the other central midfielder. Keep going through the lineup for us, please, Callum.
Yeah, just to touch on Phillips again, it was brought up in Kieran McKenna's post-match press conference, where it was his first 90 minutes since May last year, which is obviously excellent for him to get the minutes in the legs, and hopefully, we're starting to see what we can really get from him, and hopefully we, if he can go anywhere near sort of his best that he's shown in the past, then he's going to really be a fantastic signing, and is going to be fantastic for us this season. The front line was again interesting. Wes Burns came straight into the starting 11. He was obviously deemed fit enough. Ogbene, obviously away on international duty, he was possibly feeling a bit tired. I know you mentioned
he looked very tired in the Town TV interview in the week, but I think it was a welcome return for Burns, wasn't it? You noticed what he gave us, but actually I thought Ogbene, when he came on as well, both of them are proving a really physical outlet and excellent additions for this team, really.
Yeah, and Delap up front, we've spoken about Delap before. I thought he was much himself again today, albeit he didn't get many opportunities. Didn't feel like he got many touches of the ball, because it felt like no Town players got many touches of the ball today. But one of the things that he did manage to do was break away from deep inside his own half and carve out our best opportunity of the game, where he slammed it against the post. I think if that goes in and we manage to hold out for the 1-0, we're thinking of this as quite an outrageous defensive performance to come here and win. But overall, I think that the clean sheet, I thought, by the way we defended and the way Muric performed in goal, I thought the clean sheet for that was deserved. And
it was a great chance
it's
from
a brilliant point.
Yeah, the first game in the Oliver Twist Zagreb was the Man U the Southampton Man U game, and a lot of those fans stayed around, and they were really impressed by that run. And I think in general how well we dug in the game. Phil, back to you. Anything else? Who would be your man of the match? Would you say Muric as well, Phil?
I think Muric. I think the double save, I think, is one of those that we'll kind of remember. I was thinking of other double saves, famous double saves. There was a Richard Wright penalty save against Stockport some years ago where he saved the penalty and then saved the rebound as well. I think that's sort of up there with that for a double save.
It was outstanding. And the other thing, I think, again, Callum, we've talked about this in previous weeks, is we wanted to bring Muric in to be a bit more dominant on set pieces and crosses. And I think today he stood out. He had a very strong punch, which was needed. And I thought that was good.
Yeah, I thought he commanded his area really well. I think that's one thing we saw probably for the first time properly today. We mentioned the two wide players, Mitoma and Minter, because it felt as though they were struggling to get beyond the two fullbacks. So they were starting to resort to crossing it into the box towards the likes of Welbeck and Ruter and Ferguson when he came on. But it felt like every cross that was put into the area, Aro Muric was there to command it. And I just thought overall, I thought it was an absolutely fantastic performance from him.
Yeah.
One of the best goalkeeping performances from a Town player, I think, in recent years, certainly.
Although Adam, who's kindly done some of the videoing for us around the ground before the game, he was wondering with a superb display for Muric, but was the distribution there, Phil? Do you think there were times where he missed a few passes or his distribution to midfield was not as good today? Was that the one downside for Muric, would you say?
Perhaps. I think Town as a team found it hard to play out from the back. I think they really struggled, particularly first half, to really get out of their final third. So yeah, I think it's adjusting to the level, isn't it? We're playing against. I know they're not Man City, they're not Liverpool, but Brighton are they're probably one of the top sides of that next level of teams, I think. And so yeah, I think it wasn't just a Muric problem. I think it was a team problem that perhaps we're not quite up to that level yet, which isn't a surprise when you just come up from the Championship, having just come up from League One. So it is. Kieran said again in his press conference, he said this a lot. We will get better. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. There's an integration, and we will get better. But we're picking up points away at Brighton, and I think you can't say fairer than that at this stage of the season.
And coming back to that point about they are more progressed than us, it was interesting. Kieran's earlier presser in the week talking about Brighton have the infrastructure to bring players in more quickly and care for them, etc. And we've brought in a lot of players, and it sounds like people at the club are really stretching themselves just to find a housing for these people and getting over. So we've come up much quicker than expected. Brighton had more time in the Championship to prepare, I think, is something else, McKenna.
Yeah, I think that's true. And there's things like their scouting setup, their software. Apparently, someone was telling me in the summer when it was looking like Kieran would probably come to Brighton that one of the attractions was the fact that their scouting system and software side of it is one of the best in the Premier League. So, they've got all those things that so many years in the Premier League bring.
Yeah, and you can see that by the number of comparison of the number of foreign players they have versus us is it really brings that software to life. Just to finish on Muric, he's had a slightly troubled week. I think McKenna backed him really well in his presser, but I think he really showed is the game he needed after the international challenges he had. So I thought that was great. What about the subs today, Phil? I thought I was having a few messages from people from the Oliver Twist, and we were really under the cosh before the subs. I thought that's the patch when they were going to score. I think it was at about 55, 60 minutes. They were just waves of attack, resolute defending, but I think the subs came at the right time. Talk us through the subs. Who stood out for you?
Absolutely right. And Kieran, funny enough, in his press conference, spoke about George Hurst and his work off the ball. Once he'd come on, sort of pressuring their centre halves, and because I don't think he had many opportunities as such, but that work, I think Kieran saw that as very valuable in that latter half hour, really. Jack Clark, he also mentioned him, the way that he kept the ball, he took the ball he took the game to the opposition. It got us into their half, which we hadn't really done a lot of up to that stage of the second half. And actually, Ogbene did a similar thing, didn't he? Won one or two free kicks down this side and took the pressure off a bit almost as soon as he came on. So yeah, he was pleased with their impact. And yeah, it's the same. We've got used to this, haven't we, over the last 2 or 3 years? The impact that the subs made, and Jack Clark, I think, certainly looks like a player who's got a goal in him when he comes off the bench, if he's going to come off the bench, because obviously I think.
There were a couple of when he first came on, there were a couple of runs which were excellent, and I think both Benny and him put their defence on the back foot a bit and gave us that relief that we needed. Okay, let's start to look to close out, and let's do the usual look across to the forum, and in terms of 3 key words from Homer, who always posts this up. Some good ones this week, Phil. Nice stubborn point. Delap so strong. Murich keeps point, which we've been repeating there. Fortress Ipswich Town, which I quite like. Dug in deep, which I think is the summary against a very tough side. 4th from bottom, because we're 17th at the moment, although that may be changing. So what would be your 3, Phil?
McCarthy-like draw. How about
that? That's what I was thinking. Go for it. Callum, what about yourself?
We'll go for defensively, absolutely outstanding. Because to come here and get a clean sheet, the way that the game was going, the way that it did feel like it was wave after wave after wave of attack. So to come through the whole 90 minutes with the clean sheet and get a point in the board to take back to Suffolk, it's a fantastic result. And I certainly would have taken it before the game. And I think when we got into the game, I think some people were probably thinking that this is going to be a pretty difficult afternoon. I certainly was after 5-10 minutes. And it was a difficult afternoon. It was a tough watch from an Ipswich Town perspective, but a really rewarding
I think
watch
a tough watch,
by the end
but
of
I think the last half an hour, it was a fight. It was watching the fight became enjoyable, I think. Okay. Yeah. Well, listen, just to close out the I'm not going to call it the relegation mini league. I think we should call it the survival mini league going forward. It just sounds a bit more positive. So the Southampton started really strongly against Man U, but then just couldn't score. It was tippy-tappy, classic Southampton, but then fell apart for the 3 goals. Leicester did get a point away at Palace, and unfortunately at the moment Everton are winning away at Villa, which is not ideal. Just to finish out, Phil, obviously, where do you see now? Are you feeling confident now? Where do you see us? Where do you see us at the moment? Do you feel like we can be safe and having a good remainder of the season? Do you think?
I think it's positive to get a point away at Brighton. I think that's all you can really say about that. That the better sides will come to other sides will come to Brighton and not get anything. So I think we can say that. And I think that the Fulham again was a positive point. It'll be interesting to see how we get on at Southampton next week.
Yeah, let's look ahead to that. That's going to be really, a test against one of our rivals. I think they had some strong moments against United today. It won't be easy down there. They've got some strong players, but we'll return for another catch up after TWTV at Southampton away next weekend. Thanks for your time, guys. Safe travels back to Suffolk.
Cheers. Thanks a lot.